What's up, YouTube, Facebook world? Um, my name is Taiwan, aka Big Ride. I'm coming to you with chapter 10 of my book, New Jack City 2, Son of Nino. It's available for sale online and it's entitled The City, Son of Nico. And you spell that Neko. You can purchase it on Amazon. Once again, The City, Son of Nico, Neko. And this is chapter 10. Enjoy. Nino's penthouse suite was nothing short of tasteful. It had everything he could possibly think of to make it more than comfortable for one to relax in. From TVs to jacuzzis, the room was truly laid out. But even with all these luxuries and more at his fingertips, Nino lay in the king size bed still fully dressed from the funeral, pining away for his mother. He decided to have her cremated, and the gold colored urn that held her ashes was tucked protectively in the crook of his arm. He could not fathom the thought of his beloved mother lying in the ground somewhere while he was miles away. He briefly thought of relocating back to Minnesota, but quickly dismissed the idea. This was the city that he grew up in. That was the city that he grew up in, with no one but his mother at his side, and there was just too many memories. In the end, he agreed that it would be best to have a change of scenery. The service was short and uneventful, yet touching. The only people that showed up were a few of her friends and some residents from the building that they stayed in. But what Nino could not believe was the fact that Detective Blythe and Ruthers had the nerve to show up. He thought their presence there was extremely intrusive as well as borderline rude. What was their problem? Didn't they have the decency to allow him the proper time to grieve? Was it their job to make an already tragic situation even more unpleasant? With all of these things and more going through his head, Nino began to think of what his plans would be now that his mother was gone. It was at that moment he remembered the card that he had been given. He began going through his pockets when the second ring. Hello, Nino. What's up, Manny? He responded back. Then it dawned on him that he had never even called him before, and that even though he had never called him before, he already knew that it was him calling. Hey, how'd you know it was me? Simple, my young friend. Very few people have this number, and I know all of theirs by heart. I have an impeccable memory. When I saw a number that I didn't recognize, I simply assumed that it was you. Also, I have to admit I was expecting your call, he confessed. All right, well, I want to meet with you and talk about what we discussed. We will meet you in half an hour in the dining area of your hotel. I'll be there. In the time that he was waiting for them to arrive, Nino changed from his dress clothes into a pair of Rockaware knee length blue jean shorts, a blue and white short sleeve Rockaware shirt, and a pair of fresh Air Force Ones. The time passed quickly, and Nino left the room with only the golden urn that held what was left of his mother. When he stepped off the elevator, he immediately spotted Manny sitting in the dining area. The Northland Inn was an exceptionally attractive establishment, but the dining area was one of, if not the most beautiful aspects of it. It was immensely large, and the whole ceiling was totally see through. There was a huge waterfall in the center of the room with a decorative statue in the middle of it. Bouquets of fresh flowers were everywhere. The abundant sunlight pouring in from its surrounding windows and ceilings gave off the strong ambiance of a beautiful day outside, minus the breeze. When he reached the table, Manny stood up and gave Nino a firm handshake. Nino, how are you, my friend? I'm good. How about you? Excellent. Please have a seat, he invited, extending his hand toward the seat across from him. When Nino sat down, he placed the urn on the table beside him. Manny looked at the urn and then to Nino. You had her cremated? Yeah, her face was too, he stalled, unable to finish his thought. The mortician said that there was nothing he could do for her face. It was too, well, You know what I'm trying to say. Manny nodded. She was beautiful too, you know? Yes, I can imagine. He agreed. He gave Nino a sympathetic smile and looked at the urn again. You plan to keep it there? He asked. Nino looked slightly offended. This is a very big day for me, Manny. If she were alive, she would be here with me, so I see no reason why she wouldn't be here with me now, he explained. When Manny didn't respond, Nino tilted his head and stared at him. What? You got a problem with that? Manny once again looked from the urn back to Nino and gave a polite smile. No, Nino, none at all. Please, follow me. They both got up from the table and walked to the far left of the dining room. An older, distinguished looking Hispanic man sat at a table beside him by himself, sipping on a mimosa. He was in a cream colored suit with a hat of the same color, sitting on the table beside him. His hair and sideburns were low cut and salt and peppered. When his pinky ring caught a glimpse of the sun that was pouring in, the shine from the huge diamond seemed to illuminate the whole corner of the room. Nino knew at once. Nino knew at once that he was going to meet with his benefactor, the head honcho, the man himself. When he and Manny got closer, a huge, muscular, and serious-looking man stood up, holding one of his monstrously large arms out, blocking Nino from coming any further. Manny continued forward, and he and Ortiz began speaking Spanish to each other. Just when it seemed that their conversation was beginning to get animated, Manny stopped and sighed impatiently before turning to Nino. Ortiz would like to see your mother's remains, he said. Nino looked unsure at first, but the bodyguard stepped back and Nino stepped forward, reluctantly handing the urn over to Ortiz. Ortiz took the urn, crossed himself, and said something that resembled a short prayer in Spanish, and then kissed the urn before handing it back. Nino immediately liked the old man. Now, shall we get down to business? Manny asked the both of them. Nino sat down at the table and the talk began. Every now and then, Ortiz would jump in and say something in Spanish. Then he and Manny would converse shortly, or Manny would translate whatever was said to Nino. Okay, so what kind of prices are we talking about here? Nino asked. Manny flashed another one of his polite smiles. I assumed that you were talking about the cocaine. Of course, what else? Why do you ask this question? What else? Don't be so closed minded. There are plenty of other drugs for you to distribute, and we have them all. Nino became excited as he thought of all the possibilities. You can be what you call a jack of all trades. Nino's mind went to work. Weed, $300 a pound for mid grade. X, 5,000 pills at a time for $3 a pill. Heroin, for you, 50,000 a brick. Trust me, this is better than wholesale price. Nino smiled and held his head back, trying to think of drugs that he had only heard of. Meth, 23,500 a brick. This too is a very good deal. And what about the cocaine? You are aware that there is still a drought in this, yes? I am. Even so, I am prepared to give them to you at 22,000 a brick. But if you get more than 15 at a time, we will give them to you for 20,000. Nino did the math quickly in his head. If he broke everything down like he planned to do and sold them at small prices, he stood to make approximately 54,000 off each brick. He would be basically making a 200% profit off each one. With prices like that, he could not lose. All right, that sounds like a plan, but we still have the other matter, which is my mother's death. Someone has to pay. We will take care of Bear for you. What would you like done to his nephew, Heartless Hank? Nino gritted his teeth at the sound of his name. With him, it's personal. I'll take care of him myself. Have you heard about when he will get out? Our sources tell us that he will receive 6 months for his violation and an additional 3 months for a disturbance that he caused while being taken into custody. That's a total of 9 months, but with good time, he will be out in 6. Nino nodded slowly in anticipation. I can wait. I waited until the end of time for him if I had to. And what of Bear? What about him? You want him, as you say, touched, yes? Nino smiled at his choice of word. Yeah, I want him touched, Manny. Manny smoked briefly to Ortiz, and Ortiz responded with a wave of his hand and a nod of his head. He said to consider it done. Just like that, all those years of him doing business with you and you would just take him out for me? I know I asked you before, but why? Manny went inside his jacket and pulled a fat cigar out. He passed the cigar to the bodyguard, who took it, clipped it, lit it, and returned it back to Manny. Manny took a hit before answering Nino. He does what he does for three reasons. The first is to show you a gesture of his good faith. You are an extended part of the family now, and as such, you are now considered to be virtually untouchable. It is also a case of simple mathematics. All the money that he has made him over the years is already made. You are about to make him much more now. He is the past, and you are the future. The third and last reason is to show you that there is no one that can escape his wrath. You may want to remember the last reason and file it away for further use. Nino became solemn faced and looked from Ortiz to Manny. Don't threaten me, especially if we plan to do business. Is there anything else that we need to discuss? As a matter of fact, there is one other thing, Nino stated. Yes? I was wondering, what will happen to me if one of you decides that I'm of no longer use to you? Manny did not blink an eye when he responded. Let's just hope that it never comes down to that. Now, do we have a deal? He asked with his hand extended. Nino looked at it and shook Manny's hand first and then Ortiz. We have a deal, Nino told him with a smile. Excellent. Your flight leaves tonight at 10 p.m. You will arrive just in time for the July 4th celebration tomorrow. Nino looked confused. My flight? But I drove down here. What about my car? Relax. Your car will be delivered to you in New Jack City and it will be loaded with all the things that we discussed here today. We also took the liberty of renting a house for you where you will be able to store everything. I am sure that your aunt would not appreciate you storing everything at her house, no? Nino was flabbergasted. But how, he began. I told you, Nino, he is a small man, but his reach is very long. And what I said earlier was not meant to be a threat. It was simply a reminder. Nino didn't even comment. He was too busy wondering if he had just bitten off more than he could chew. Bear walked down the long corridor in Hennepin County's old jail located in City Hall. He was angry as he carried his bin with all of his belongings to whatever it was that the beautiful Hispanic CO was taking him to. What do you mean somebody kited me out of the unit? He asked, pissed off. All I know is what was told to me and what I've told you, Mr. Davis. We received multiple kites with complaints about you bullying and intimidating people in the unit, and we are obligated to do something about it. That's bullshit. I don't even talk to nobody in there. I stay to myself. They stopped in front of a door and she turned around to face him. Well, if that's true, then you should have no problem getting along in here, she told him, opening the door. He stood at the entrance, staring her down. After you, sir. Bear went ahead of her and walked into the small hallway. Stupid ass motherfuckers. I can't stand this motherfucking place, he mumbled to himself. When he got to the second door, he looked through the glass and saw an open dorm with 12 single beds. But that wasn't what stood out about the room. What caught his eye was the fact that all 9 occupants of the room were of the Hispanic persuasion. Oh, hell no. Y'all gonna move me where I was to bring me to a room full of gualagualas? What kind of shit is that? The CO gave him a stern look, clearly offended by his words. Goodbye, Mr. Davis, she said calmly as she opened the door to the mod. He walked into the unit and the door closed behind him. Bitch, he said through the glass. He knew that she heard him, but instead of flipping out like he expected her to do, she did the strangest thing. She smiled at him and she walked away. The first thing Bear noticed about his new surroundings was the absolute and utter silence. That was particularly strange. Bear turned around and looked at them, only to see that they were all looking back at him as well. This made him a bit uneasy, but he tried to play it off. What the fuck are you motherfuckers looking at? He questioned. None of them said anything. Bear began grumbling to himself as he walked toward the bed he had been assigned to. Guala, guala, motherfuckers. When he reached the bed, he bent down and placed his being on it. He turned around and almost jumped out of his county issue sandal. All the men were standing directly behind him. He twisted his face up in an attempt to intimidate them. What the fuck is wrong with you motherfuckers? Boo! He said, throwing his hands up in the air and stomping his foot at them. Get the fuck away from me, you little bastards. None of them said anything or made an attempt to turn away. The uneasiness that Bear felt earlier had returned with a passion. What? What you want? He asked. Everyone remained wordless, but one of them went under his shirt and pulled something out of his waistband. When he flicked his thumb, a blade appeared. One by one, the others did the same. One after the other produced blades and stood looking at him, breathing heavily with their chests heaving. Finally, it dawned on him what was happening. Oh shit, he said, and made a break for the emergency button on the wall. Instantly, the men tackled him, jumping on him from all angles, stabbing and slicing away, on his back, on his arms, on his legs. A couple of them were even going to town on his face and neck. Soon he was losing so much blood that trying to reach the emergency button was no longer a priority for him. All he wanted to do was go to sleep to escape the torture that his body was experiencing. Now, almost totally drained blood, imminent sleep was forthcoming and inevitable, and Bear welcomed it. When he was still and lifeless on the vacant bed, they all got off him and slowly walked to the shower area one by one, where they stripped and showered. While under the water, they would take the knife they used and wipe it down thoroughly with a rag, and then wrap the knife up in the rag. After they were all showered, Officer Rivera showed back up at the door. The men all lined up naked from head to toe and dropped their blade clothes and sandals into garbage bags that she held open with gloved hands. After they dropped them in the bag, she would give them fresh uniforms and sandals to put on. When the man had received his change of clothes, he asked her, "And we'll receive our money?" "Yes, $10,000. And our families will not be hurt?" "None of your loved ones will be hurt as long as everyone keeps their words and says nothing about what happened here tonight. Senor Ortiz is a man of his word. He will not betray you as long as you do not betray him," she assured him. The man nodded his head. "We will keep our word. The money will help our families greatly. Tell him thank you." "I will. Hurry up and get dressed. I will return in 15 minutes to come and escort all of you to transport. INS is here to take you back to Mexico," she said, and left. There was much for her to do. She had to go and discard the incriminating garbage bags, unscramble their surveillance cameras on that floor, and call Manny to let him know that it was done. Her and her 3 co-workers would surely be able to use the $30,000 that they were paid for their help. She only hoped that their own family would not be harmed. Bear's lifeless body would be left in the room until someone discovered it. Without any forensic evidence or a witness, it would be hard to pin the murder on anyone. In fact, it would be impossible as long as everyone stuck together and kept their mouths shut. Even if they could track the men down, how could they just pick one out of 9? They could not. This legal system, all you have to do is create reasonable doubt, and they had. They had created it 9 times. God bless America. Nino received a call from Manny telling him about Bear's death before he even boarded the plane, and now he was in extremely high spirits. After he got on the plane, he went to sleep and did not wake up until they had landed in New Jack City. When he came out of the terminal with his carry-on luggage, he spotted Big Tiny parked at the curb waiting on him. "What's up, boss? How was your trip?" he asked. Nino gave a small smile. "Bittersweet, Tiny, bittersweet. How are things here?" he asked. When he saw the look on Tiny's face, he knew something was wrong. I'd rather tell you when we get back to the hotel, so you only have to hear it once." Nino's eye followed him as he walked around to the driver's side of the truck. "Is the money straight?" Nino asked. Big Tiny barely glanced at him. He just turned the ignition and started the truck. "Tiny, I asked you a question. Is my money straight? Big Tiny turned and looked him directly in the eyes. Nino, please, when we get to the motel, okay? Nino took a deep breath, put a hand on his forehead, and laid his head back on the headrest. Damn, he exclaimed as Big Tiny pulled away. They rode in silence with the only sound in the truck being the voice of Gucci Mane coming from the speakers. When they pulled up to the motel, Nino jumped out of the truck without getting anything from it except the urn. Ronnie opened the door to the room before Nino even knocked. Everyone was already assembled in one room. They all greeted him and asked him about his trip, but Nino was very short with his answers. When he finally laid eyes on Double D, his jaw dropped in surprise. Someone had gave him a real pumpkin head. His left eye was swollen, his jaw was bruised and swollen as well, and his lip was almost split in two. His head was at least a half size bigger than his normal size. What the fuck happened to you? He demanded. I got jumped. Jumped? By who? That's what I had to tell you about, Big Tiny said, speaking up. That's what you had to tell me? He repeated sardonically. Nino sat down in one of the seats in the room, crossed his legs, and folded his hands together on one knee and began to rock his foot impatiently. Okay, nigga, I'm ready. Lay it on me, he said, his eyes raging. Big Tiny swallowed nervously and began to recount the story as it had been told to him. Nino sat and listened to it all, growing more and more enraged by the moment. At the end of the story, Nino was out of his seat on his feet. Tiny, I left you in charge. I know, he said defensively. Well, if you knew, then why didn't you do something about it? Something like what? Nino became even more heated. Well, for starters, why didn't you tell me when I was calling back here and checking on y'all? Tiny blew a deep sigh. We didn't want to bother you with no bad news. I figured you were weighed down with enough already having to deal with the funeral and all, Tiny explained. His answer curbed Nino's wrath away from him, but when he turned towards the newest dishes to his crew. And what's up with y'all? My so-called killer crew? What did you do? He asked, looking at all of them. We didn't do nothing. Man volunteered, finally speaking up for the first time since Nino had met him. I see that. Now I want to know why. This time it was Chopper who chose to speak on everyone's behalf. We figured that if we went over there and did something crazy, it wouldn't do nothing but make the spot hot, and that would just make it worse for us in the long run. Plus, we don't really know nothing about how the police work up here, he said, crossing his right hand over his left in the stands. Nino waved a dismissive hand at him. Get that weak ass shit out of here, he retorted. Hey, you asked the question. I'm just giving you an answer. Chopper returned, holding his arms wide. That wasn't no answer. That's a motherfucking excuse. Chopper became indignant after Nino's response, and to everyone's surprise, he got really mad really quick. Hey, check this out, Nino. I don't know about you, but I'm a grown-ass man, and I ain't used to nobody hollering at me like I'm a child. Well, there's the motherfucking door then, Chopper. Ain't nobody got no gun up to your head forcing you to be here, he pointed to the door. You free to leave anytime you want. He turned his head slowly, meeting all of their gazes. That goes for all of you. If anybody don't like how I'm talking to you, you can bounce at any time. He waited a moment, but no one moved or said anything back. All of that shit, the food, the hotel, and whatever other money you spend here is all on my dime. And as long as that's happening, then I'm the motherfucking boss, whether you like it or not. I pay the cost to be the boss. And we all know the golden rule. Whoever has the gold makes the rules. I just heard about somebody jumping on a member of my crew. And not only that, they robbed him, made him empty his motherfucking pockets. And I'm not supposed to be mad? Shit, y'all supposed to be just as mad as I am, or am I the only one who was serious about this CMB shit? Am I the only cash money brother up in this motherfucker? He asked. Everyone around the room voiced their alliance. Hell no, I'm CMB. I'm CMB, shit. I'm a cash money motherfucker, shit. Main G co-signed. And would you let somebody disrespect you by telling you you ain't shit? Again, choruses of no, no, and hell no resounded around the room. Because that's what those motherfuckers did when they put their hands on Double D the other day. They said, fuck you, fuck CMB, y'all ain't shit, and what the fuck are y'all gonna do about it? Well, I'm CMB. My father made it, he designed it, but I'm gonna perfect it. I love this shit. I stand on it, and I'm prepared to die for it. How you gonna be your brother's keeper if you don't feel the same way that I do? Nino waited patiently for a response, but none was forthcoming from his crew. CMB, he asked with his hand out. CMB, everyone answered as they laid their hands on top of his. Today is the 4th of July, fellas. We going to the Carters to celebrate, and we gonna bring our own fireworks. Let's make them stand up and take notice of us. Remember, we all we got. It was about 6 p.m. later that day, and the festivities at the Carter apartments were in full swing. Multiple barbecue grills were fired up and smoking. Coolers filled to the brim with ice, beer, and soda pop were strategically placed around the area. Children ran and played everywhere as music boomed out of the concert speakers that had been set up. Everyone was in attendance and everyone was having a good time. Even the sun in the sky was doing its part as it beamed down, providing immense heat and plentiful sunshine to all. The tables that had been set up were overflowing with food, paper plates, cups, and utensils. It was a joyous day for everyone present. Things could not have been going any better than they were. Then, like a bad cold, CMB showed up. Nino had all of CMB spread out amongst the unsuspecting residents. Everyone was too caught up in their individual activities to know that danger was lurking. Most of them were in a state of intoxication and were smoking something or drinking something or both. Those who weren't were just naturally high off the intense fun of the atmosphere that these type of gatherings tended to create. CMB was armed to the teeth. DJ, Smoke, Man, Black, Roni, and Big Tiny were all armed with either a 4.5 or a Glock 9 handgun. Main G had an MP5 with a 20-shot clip and a flashlight attached at the top. Chopper was in the cut with a Remington pump shotgun. Nino and Double D were the only two paired up. Double D was armed with a 357 Magnum, while Nino had a 44 Bulldog. Big Lord was about 100 yards away from all of them on the side of two cars with a pair of binoculars and an M24 SWS. The M24 is a 308 caliber bolt action rifle that holds 5 rounds in the magazine. The barrel was 24 inches long and equipped with a 10 by 24 Leopold Ultra M38 telescope sight. It was large, it was lethal, and it was precise. When Nino saw that everyone was in position, he turned to Double D. "Where they at?" he asked him. Double D looked out among the scores of people before he spotted Dolph and his cronies. He quickly and discreetly held a hand out and pointed in their direction. Nino looked where he was indicating, and what he saw pissed him off. Dolph was of average height with a slightly protruded belly and a sagging, pudgy face that still showed evidence of a terrible bout of acne that had ravaged him for years. Now, simply because of being born and raised at the right place at the right time and getting the hookup with the right connection, this sorry motherfucker was the man to see around here. Nino looked at him with his long gold chain and saw how the women flocked around him, oblivious to his ugly looks. He saw the way his boys stayed at his side, hanging on to his every word, and laughed at his corny jokes at the appropriate times. Nino felt that should have been him over there. Then his mother's words to him rung in his ears. "A true leader leads by example." Nino looked over to Main G and nodded his head at him, giving him the signal. Main G nodded back and stepped over to the DJ's table, pulling the MP5 from his back. "Cut the music, Charlie Wally," he said. The DJ didn't hesitate. When the music stopped, there were remarks of disapproval everywhere. "Hey, what happened to the music?" someone yelled out loud. Nino didn't waste any time. He walked directly over to where Dolph was seated with his entourage. "What's up? Somebody said you was looking for me." Dolph looked up at him, clearly baffled. "Who the fuck are you?" he asked, eyeing him from head to toe. "I'm Nino Brown, motherfucker." Dolph was stuck for a moment or two until he looked behind Nino and spotted Double D, who had been hanging back. When he saw him, it was then that he realized who he was and what they were doing there. His eyes widened in horror as he watched Nino pull the 44 off his waist. Oh shit, he exclaimed as he reached for his weapon but never made it. The first shot that Nino fired hit him in his kneecap, all but separating it from his upper leg. As he bent forward and hollered out in pain, Nino took him out of his misery by blasting him in the back of his head. The loud shot sent everyone into a frenzy. Many people were trying to get away while others ducked for cover. Parents tried to find and locate their children. Women and kids screamed or cried or both. Nino knew that this would happen and had in fact anticipated it. That was the reason why he had his crew spread out the way they were. As people tried to run and get away, they were stopped at gunpoint by a member of CMB and made to remain where they were. His example was being made, and he wanted everyone there to witness it. The people that were standing with Dolph were visibly scared to death and frozen stiff to the same spot they were in when Dolph was shot. Nino kept bouncing the bulldog back and forth between them all. Double D, get your ass over here, he ordered. Double D, still shocked by the blood and gore, timidly stepped up to where Nino was. He was careful to keep his eyes off Dolph's mangled and lifeless body. Which one of these fuckers put their feet on you, he asked. Double D reluctantly raised his hand and pointed out to the two individuals. Nino squinted his eyes at them in contempt. Shoot him. Double D's face turned so fast it was like he had been smacked. Huh? Huh, hell. I said shoot the motherfuckers. Everyone's eyes were on Double D as he raised the gun with a shaky hand. Kids looked on in fear and put their hands over their ears to block the sound of the imminent gunshot. Mothers covered their children's eyes and ducked their own heads, unwilling to be a witness to any more bloodshed. Double D's hand was shaking so much it looked like he was going to drop the 357. Finally, he relented and dropped the gun to his side, too embarrassed and ashamed to look Nino in his eyes. Nino turned his head to say something to him, and the man who Double D had been aiming his gun at went under his shirt to pull his own strap. Double D saw him make the move. He pushed Nino out of the way, raised his gun, and fired, hitting the man in the face twice, rendering him featureless. The other man who had helped to jump Double D took that opportunity to take off running. Nino turned his head toward where Big Lord lay in wait with the rifle. Lord, get him, he hollered. No sooner had the words left his mouth, there was the sound of a gunshot, and the man fell. Double D looked like he was going to throw up. He threw the gun down and took off toward the parking lot. Nino let him go. He picked up the gun that he had held and that he had dropped and held the smoking pistol in his hand. There was a great quiet in the once jubilant area, and all eyes were on Nino. All right, listen up. These motherfuckers put their hands on one of my guys. He's a part of CMB. Despite what you may have heard, CMB is not dead. It's alive, breathing, and here in the flesh. And nobody better ever lay a hand on a member of CMB. Let this be a lesson to you. This man, he continued and kicked the foot of a very dead Dolph, stole from me. You take from me, and I take your motherfucking life. My name is Nino, and I'm the head of CMB. Now, for those of you who don't know or don't care to remember, CMB stands for Cash Money Brothers. CMB stands for Cutthroat Maniacal Beast. CMB stands for Cold-Hearted, Murderous, and Bloodthirsty. But most importantly, CMB stands for the Carter is mine, bitches. Now, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, but either way, it's getting done. Make no mistake. The real question is, do you want you and your loved ones to still be among the living when all is said and done? If everybody keeps their mouth shut, then this will be a one-time occurrence and the shit ends right here. But if one of you motherfuckers talk, if me or any of my people end up going to jail because of one of you talked about what happened here, then I swear on my mother's grave that you will be sorry. Most of you are old enough to remember my father, or if you're not, then you have heard of him. Even from my jail cell, I'll make this city see blood like it hasn't seen since the days of his reign. Fuck a bloodbath. I'll make that shit run like a waterfall, and it will begin and end right here in the Carters. The people that you see here before you are just the tip of the iceberg. I could have another 100 men here by tomorrow, hungry and ready to do whatever the fuck I tell them to do. I'll have them kicking your doors in, terrorizing your women, snatching your kids up on their way to school, and killing your men on their way to and from work. Is that what you want? Do you want to live in more fear than you already do? Let me know because I can arrange it. Now, what's it going to be? No one answered the question. The only sound that could be heard were the sounds of far off traffic and the occasional whimpers and cries of terrified women and children. I take your silence as agreement to my terms. You can return to your party. Have a nice day, he said, walking away. His soldiers brought up the rear, keeping an eye on everyone as they left. No one said it, but the message was well understood. Nino was now officially their fearless leader, and he had rightfully earned the position hands down. He had shown his heart, and there was none under his command ready to challenge it ever again. Long live the king. That was the end of chapter 10, New Jack City 2, Son of Nino. You can buy the book, The City, Son of Nico, on Amazon. You spell that Neko. I appreciate you guys tuning in and watching and listening. I'll be back to you with chapter 11 later on. I appreciate your viewership. I hope you're enjoying it as well as I am. Thank you and peace out.